Hey y'all, Dustin here. Well, week one of the college football season is officially over, and it was about the most exciting and crazy and weird week of college football I can remember in a very long time. I assume for various reasons you'll agree. The late game on Monday meant that the very first in-season AP poll, not preseason, week one AP poll was released on Tuesday, so I had to wait till today to make my video. But going forward, these videos, these reaction videos to the polls, will go up on Sunday. Or Monday morning. It depends on how slow my internet is. So I figured what I would do here, since I don't care about the coaches poll at all, I will only look at the AP poll and then eventually at the college football playoff selection committee's poll, which I think is after week 8, but I'm not too certain about that. What I figured I would do is I would take a look at the top 25 and I would kind of pick out some teams. I'm not going to talk about every single team, and I don't want this video to be too long. I say as I ramble, but I do want to take a look at a few interesting things about teams and where they're slotted in the poll. At the end of it, I want to let you guys know what I would rank my top 25 poll as and why I picked who I picked where, if that makes sense. Why I slotted the teams where I did. And I picked my top 25 before the AP poll was released today at 2 p.m. So some of it looks similar, some of it doesn't. I promise I did mine first. So first we're going to look at the actual AP poll. And of course, coming in at number 1 was Alabama. When you beat USC 52-6, you pretty much make your preseason number 1 ranking an inevitable week 1 ranking. Clemson stayed at number 2. I'm not sure how. I don't think after that performance you can say they're definitely the second best team in the country based on the first week of action we saw. I know that going into Auburn is a tough place. It's a road win versus an SEC team, all of that. But frankly, Clemson did not look like the second best team in the country. And I know it's the first week of the season, and I know that it was against a theoretically quality opponent. And who knows, Auburn could go on to be 10-2 this year, to have a great season. But if it's anything like the Auburn teams we've seen in the past, and the Auburn offense, every time there seemed to be something happening, they would switch quarterbacks. That offense was anemic. So I'm not entirely sold on the Clemson defense yet. I'm going to need to see a little bit. But Deshaun Watson, his first main primetime stage since the national championship game, he did not do much. He's probably very glad that Mike Williams came back. Number 3 is Florida State. I'm not shocked by this at all. They were already number 4. Number 3 lost, so theoretically you move them up to at least number 3. They beat what was number 11 Ole Miss, and a very good team in Ole Miss. Very deserving in number 3. Not upset about that at all. And number 4 is Ohio State. Number 5 is Michigan. They were 6-7 coming into this week in the preseason poll. They dominated their opponents, though I don't think that should be surprising or rewarded because we expected them to. Maybe not 67 and 60-point wins, so that was kind of impressive. But again, clearly they're more talented than the teams they were playing. Number 6 was Houston. I always say their name weird, Houston Cougars. Other than Florida State, they probably had the biggest win of the weekend. I would argue the biggest win of the weekend, but I think it's them and Florida State kind of neck and neck. They beat what was then the number 3 team in the country, a team that got into the college football playoff last year, the defending Big 12 champion in Oklahoma, the preseason favorite in the Big 12 in Oklahoma, and they beat them at technically a neutral field, even though it was in Houston, technically at a neutral field, and they beat them by 10. Double digits is always good. They showed they were for real and that the Big 12 definitely has to take them into serious consideration to move into their league, even though they're already in Texas. Huge win for Houston. Proves that last season and the Peach Bowl was not some fluke win. This could be, mark my words, even though everybody probably already knows it, this could be a season-defining and a program-turning win. I believe that. Number 8 is Washington. Chris Peterson's Washington Huskies seems to have finally arrived. They had a really big win over overmatched Power 5 opponent in Rutgers, who also had to travel the entire length of the country for whatever that's worth. I think they would have beaten Rutgers by 30 points no matter where they played. This Washington team has everything in front of it for the rest of the season, including number 7 Stanford, who sits right above them. Number 9 is Georgia. They beat a really good team in North Carolina that was also ranked at the time. Like Houston, it was technically a neutral site game, even though the game was like an hour away from Athens. They have a decision to make at quarterback between Eason and Lambert. I would go with Eason. I don't know why. You have a fantastic running game. Nick Chubb got 222 yards, and the other backs kind of filled in. They almost got 300 in this game. They still have some ranked teams ahead of them. We'll see. I'm not completely sold they're a top 10 team yet, but after the week 1 win against North Carolina, I'm not going to argue too much. Number 10, Wisconsin. Welcome to the top 10, Badgers. Seriously, though, that win against the Tigers in Lambeau Field was a huge win for them. I feel like it got like a monkey off Wisconsin's back in some way as they kind of move forward in their program. Here's the thing. LSU is a tough team, but I never believed they were number 5. If you believe they were number 5 and Wisconsin beat them, of course they should move up to number 10. If you don't, maybe they shouldn't move up quite that high. But I'm not mad at all for them moving up to number 10. I can't really argue with it. Number 11 sees the Texas Longhorns launch from the not ranked all the way up to number 11. They had a huge, exciting, thrilling win against Notre Dame on Sunday night. A Notre Dame team that is very, very good, and even with one loss, if they went out the rest of the way, could very, very easily find themselves in the playoffs. That freshman quarterback for the Longhorns looked like a stud, didn't he? Number 14 is the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma got punished a little bit for losing to Houston the way they did. Houston was clearly the better team in pretty much every facet of the game, especially special teams. We all remember that kick 6 they had. They dropped 11 points in this poll. I wouldn't kill them too much going forward, especially if they kind of work their way back through the Big 12 and kind of prove themselves, because it was a neutral game, although everybody knows it was an away game, and they lost to a very, very good team in Houston. At number 15, you have TCU, who actually dropped 2 points after winning because they allowed the Jackrabbits from South Dakota State to be beating them in the second half and to score 41 points. A really interesting one is number 17, Tennessee. Now, the Vols dropped 8 points after winning a tough game at home. And I made a video that you can see right here about what just happened, Tennessee, App State in overtime. And I had a lot of people comment down there and be like, "What are you talking about, idiot? It's the first game. It's the first game. This isn't, App State's a really good team. We'll regroup." Okay. I understand. App State is a very good team. They're probably going to win the Sun Belt. My point in that video was you have a pretty tough road coming up. And if you play like that in those games, your SEC East dreams are going to vanish very quickly. And some Vols fans got very mad at me for saying that. Well, it seems like the AP poll kind of agrees with me. 8 points after winning, that's a huge drop. So Tennessee has some ground to make up in the eyes of the voters and fans alike in their upcoming weeks. But they have Virginia Tech at what will probably be the largest in-game attendance in the history of college football. They'll have Georgia, they'll have A&M, they'll have Alabama, they'll have Florida. They will have their games coming up. So I wouldn't fret too much, but at the same time, they did drop 8 spots. Another team that dropped 8 spots was Notre Dame, who was 10, and they dropped down to 18 after they lost on the road to an unranked Texas team. But I wouldn't be too terribly worried because we did not know that was going to be who Texas was. And in the end, Texas may end up having a fantastic year, especially based on the previous few years they've had, in which case you probably shouldn't look at that loss too harshly, and maybe the Longhorns should have been ranked all along. And number 19 was Ole Miss. They also dropped a little bit back, also 8 points, or 8 spots. I don't know why I keep saying points. Also 8 spots after losing a neutral field, which isn't really a neutral field, more like an away game, to Florida State, who is now number 3, was then number 4. They had them, man. They were up 28-6, and they just let them claw back. Biggest comeback in Florida State history. That stings to be the other team in that game. And the flip side of this is the Ole Miss team that started the game with the tempo and Chad Kelly throwing and Stringfellow. If they would have kept that up, if they would have beaten Florida State, I really believe Ole Miss would have been in the top 5. So this really is like a 14-point drop from where they could have been to where they are. All right, this is getting a little long. So, number 20, Texas A&M. Welcome back to the top 25. Number 25, Miami. Welcome back to the top 25 after scoring 70 points. Doesn't matter that it was against Florida A&M. Miami hasn't scored 70 points in God only knows how long. Actually, the record books probably know. I just didn't look it up. The most interesting one to me is number 21, LSU. They dropped 16 spots after losing to Wisconsin in a neutral site game that once again was just a glorified road game in the holiest of holies for Wisconsin football fans in Lambeau Field. They were down 13-0 until they scored 2 quick touchdowns in the third quarter to go up 14-13, and then had a late field goal, I believe right under 4 minutes, that put the Badgers up ahead, and then a last-minute interception that they threw, of course the dirty hit, that accompanied it, sealed the game, and LSU dropped. What makes me curious is they're exactly the team I thought they were. They don't have a quarterback. Their offense is around Leonard Fournette, who got injured for a bit during that game. I don't know LSU's offensive identity. I haven't for many years now. And the fact that LSU is the team in such a talent-rich state like Louisiana, and they're neighboring Texas, and they have a pipeline in Florida, and they can't get a quarterback under Les Miles is deeply, deeply troubling, and they will not win a conference or national championship again until they have a quarterback. So them dropping down to number 21 is a little interesting for me because it kind of shows me that the voters never really believed in the number 5 ranking all that much, or maybe they were just discouraged by how they played. But really, they shouldn't have been too depressed. The opposite of impressed, right? Deflated about the Tigers' performance. Okay, so now I want to give my top 25. I'll list every single team, and I'm going to give you a quick little soundbite of why I put them where I did. And again, I made this top 25 list before I ever saw the AP poll that came out today. So this is mine. This is not based on anything else I saw. At number 1, I have Alabama. When you beat USC by 46 points and you were already number 1, you get to be number 1. At number 2, I have Florida State. I thought they beat a really good team at Ole Miss, and after they got behind, they showed resiliency behind their freshman quarterback, Francois, and they came back, biggest comeback in Florida State history. I just got them as the second best team in the country that impressed me this weekend. At number 3, I have the Houston Cougars, a team name that I will never be able to say correctly if I really try, so I have to cover it up by kind of mocking it. Because why would you put your school and your mascot back-to-back that have OU in their name? Hey, speaking of OU, they beat them. They beat them on offense, and they beat them in defense, and they certainly beat them in special teams. I have them at number 3 because they beat Florida State, who is now number 2 at the end of last season, even though that should not reflect this year's polls. I can't forget about it because they kind of picked right back up where they left off. This was technically a neutral site game against the number 3 team in the country, against the Big 12 champions last year, and the Big 12 preseason favorites this year. And for a team trying to get in that conference, they certainly showed out. They seem to me to be one of those teams that is just going to get better during the season and could be the ultimate complete team by the end of the year. At number 4, I have Clemson. I'm a stern believer in you should toss out the poll every single week and craft a brand new poll based on what you saw. Do I think Clemson is the 4th best team in the country based on the performance I saw against Auburn Saturday? No. I put them at number 4 based on potential because I think it's going to be a lot like the Louisville game was last year, where they went on the road to the Cardinals on a Thursday night game and they were up 20-10 and seemed to have the game wrapped up, and then they had a 100-yard kick return and it was 20-17, and they had to kind of hold off Louisville at the end. And then they went on. I feel like that kind of woke them up, got some of the cobwebs or the jitters out, and they went on to have a fantastic season. This Auburn game could very well be that, or it could be the very beginning signaling that something is not right with this team. I'm not exactly sure yet, so I'm going to put them at number 4 based on potential, but that is always ready to change. We'll see. At number 5, I have Ohio State. They scored 77, set the total offense mark by J.T. Barrett. I don't care if it was against a MAC team, it was damn impressive. Number 6, Michigan. I'm genuinely surprised Hawaii scored at all. I really thought it would be a shutout. 63-3 though. That's the most points that Michigan has scored since they introduced touchdown as 6 points in 1912. So I put them as 6. At number 7, I have Stanford. I thought they played a tough game against a really tough K-State team. Christian McCaffrey had 2, should have been 3 touchdowns, and it was a primetime game. I feel like I won't get to see Stanford as much as I want to this year because I live on the East Coast, but I was impressed by them. I think their quarterback did really well, and I think they're definitely in contention to win the Pac-12 at this moment. I have them 7. The only other team that I think could possibly beat them at this moment in the Pac-12, I have at number 8, and Washington. Yes, the Huskies beat Rutgers, which is not that impressive, but they looked really good doing it, and it seems like the pieces may finally be there for Chris Peterson. Number 9, I have Texas. What can I say that hasn't already been said? Amazing, fantastic win over Notre Dame. A career-changing performance for Charlie Strong. I have Texas at number 9, and they are going to stay there until they prove me otherwise. Number 10, I have Georgia. North Carolina is a good team, even if Larry Fedora forgets that Elijah Hood is in the backfield, which is ridiculous. I just think Georgia's a really good team. I think they should go with Nick Eason at quarterback, but Nick Chubb is a beast, and as long as he's back there, Georgia's in contention. Number 11, I have Wisconsin. I did not think number 5 LSU deserved to be number 5 last week, yet I have Wisconsin at number 11, which doesn't make any sense. But I don't really know where I would have put LSU last week. Probably around the 15, somewhere in that mark. Maybe a little bit higher. I have Wisconsin at number 11. It was a good win. It was an emotional win. Here's the question. Can they sustain that? That was a win against a very good defense, a very quality opponent. I have you number 11, Badgers. The country is watching. How are you going to respond? Number 12, I have Texas A&M. I believe UCLA is a good team. I believe that number 16 last week is about where I would have put them, and they beat that team at home in overtime. They should have put that away earlier, and they let them come back. But what are you going to do? You win the game, you win the game. I have them at 12. We will see. They will have a test coming up pretty soon in just a few weeks, and we'll see what they do then. Number 13 is Louisville. I think they had 63 points at halftime or something crazy like that. Yeah, it was against Charlotte, and Charlotte hasn't been around for very long. But Lamar Jackson is a awesome talent, and it'll be very interesting to see what he does against the defenses of Florida State and Clemson. And both of those games are in the not-too-distant future, I believe in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So we will get a much clearer idea of Jackson and Louisville coming up soon. And number 14, I have Tennessee. They had an ugly win against a very good team at home. I think hopefully this game will wake up Josh Dobbs and they can actually get the offense moving. But that O-line has got to plug the holes. If it doesn't, Josh Dobbs is going to be running for his life all season long. Jalen Hurd will not be able to get any rushing lanes at all, and this is going to sink their season. So I have you number 14. They have all the chance in the world to move up with Georgia and Florida and Alabama coming up on the schedule in the next few weeks. At number 15, I have Ole Miss. If I can just be honest with you, Ole Miss and Oklahoma were the next 2 teams, and I just have Florida State at 2 and Houston at 3, and Oklahoma and Ole Miss were pretty much an exact same situation, although Ole Miss had a much bigger lead than Oklahoma did. They just blew it in neutral games that were really away games. So I have Ole Miss at 15, Oklahoma at 16. I have Notre Dame at 17. They lost to a really tough Texas team at home that played with a lot of energy and spirit and passion, and I have no worries in my mind that Notre Dame will move up this list very soon. At number 18, I have UCLA Bruins. They traveled to College Station to play Texas A&M, which is never easy. And they lost in overtime, but they had that valiant effort in the fourth quarter to come back. It's going to be tough for them in the Pac-12. Luckily, they're in the South. At number 19, I have Iowa. They beat Miami of Ohio. Yawn. Number 20, I have Florida. They beat UMass. They were leading them 10-7 going into the fourth quarter and beat them 24-7. Okay. At number 21, I dropped Michigan State down to 21. They had a really rough start Friday night. They struggled with FCS Furman, who I believe went 4-8 last year. It's a hometown team, technically. You shouldn't struggle against Furman. So you kind of got away. You were never really in trouble of losing, but you got away from a team that's in the FCS. You only beat them by, I believe, 16 points. So I dropped you below teams that beat FBS teams. So you're 21st now. Number 22, I have L. But going forward, these videos, these reaction videos to the polls will go up on Sunday. Or Monday morning. It depends on how slow my internet is. So I figured what I would do here, since I don't care about the coaches poll at all, I will only look at the AP poll and then eventually at the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's poll, which I think is after week 8, but I'm not too certain about that. What I figured I would do is I would take a look at the top 25 and I would kind of pick out some teams. You can say they're definitely the second best team in the country based on the first week of action we saw. I know that going into Auburn is a tough place. It's a road win versus an SEC team, all of that. But frankly, Clemson did not look like the second best team in the country. And I know it's the first week of the season, and I know that it was against a theoretically quality opponent. And who knows, Auburn could go on to be 10-2. Hey y'all, Dustin here. Well, week 1 of the college football season is officially over, and it was about the most exciting and crazy and weird week of college football I can remember in a very long time. I assume for various reasons you'll agree. The late game on Monday meant that the very first in-season AP poll, not preseason, week 1 AP poll was released on Tuesday, so I had to wait till today to make my video, 2 p.m. So some of it looks similar, some of it doesn't. I promise I did mine first. So first we're going to look at the actual AP poll, and of course coming in at number 1 was Alabama. When you beat USC 52-6, you pretty much make your preseason number 1 ranking an inevitable week 1 ranking. Clemson stayed at number 2. I'm not sure how. I don't think after that performance, I'm going to talk about every single team, and I don't want this video to be too long. I say as I ramble, but I do want to take a look at a few interesting things about teams and where they're slotted in the poll. At the end of it, I want to let you guys know what I would rank my top 25 poll as and why I picked who I picked where, if that makes sense. Why I slotted the teams where I did. And I picked my top 25 before the AP poll was released today at